So imagine if you woke up to find out that your identity had been stolen. Now imagine finding out that it wasn't your fault. Check this out.
My own mother stole my identity. She literally destroyed my credit before I could even open my own credit card. And here's how I found out. I was 18. I went to apply for a credit card so I could pay for my college courses. And rather than getting approved, I got denied and told I had too many delinquent accounts. So when I started to investigate, I found that a credit card was open in my name and delinquent. After calling the credit card company and getting the address the credit card was sent to, I realized it was my mom's. I was devastated. This was months after my 18th birthday when she had also given me a Coach purse for my birthday. So as I continued my investigation, I realized that the Coach purse was actually bought with the stolen credit card. Not only did she steal my identity, but I also bought my own birthday present. Just before I had found out that she had stolen a credit card in my name, she also took the Coach purse back and kept it for herself.
Oh, hell no. Your mom steals your identity, buys a Coach purse, which, by the way, Coach is just way more expensive than it should be, right? And then she ends up giving it to you. You find out that she used your identity to get it, and then she takes it back and keeps it for herself. Oh, hell no. Is that something that would make a rift between you and your mom?
If you ever bought a house, then you know that right before settlement, they will pull your credit again to make sure that you haven't opened any new accounts. So when I first got approved, I only had 3 trade lines on my credit. My credit score was like a 720, so it should have been the same. When they pulled my credit 4 days before settlement, I went from having 3 trade lines on my credit to over 50. As the result, they canceled my settlement. It took 10 years, 2 attorneys, and a lot of money to remove me from that fraudulent debt. As the result, the Social Security number that I was born with, I can never use that number again.
You know, that's crazy. I hear so many stories like this, and the thing that really bums me out is it sounds like companies, credit bureaus, and legalities can never get you free from this stuff. It sounds like once your identity is compromised, you have a lifetime of grief.
And I was trying to go get me a job, and they pulled my background. I learned that someone basically stole my identity and went to jail in my name.
Oh, wow.
But literally, I applied for a new job at Memorial Hospital, went through HR, got hired, took my ID badge picture and everything. My background check never came back. So me being me, I was really on them. I was calling about my background to see, like what's going on. So long story short, they tell me I have to send in my fingerprints. But they tell me I have to go down to the sheriff office and do 2 blue and white SDI cards with my fingerprints. And I need to send a picture of my ID, a picture of my social, and a copy of my birth certificate off to this address in Atlanta. Okay, fine, I did it.
Did I hear her right that she has to send a picture of herself, her Social Security, her ID card, and then she has to send 2 SD cards?
A week go on, and I still haven't heard anything from this job. So I'm calling them back again like, hey, have y'all heard anything about my fingerprints? So the job, like, fingerprints, we wouldn't never ask you for fingerprints.
You know, sometimes people just seem like they get in with shady jobs and they end up dealing with shady people, and shady things end up happening to them. You're a teacher, yeah, you got to get fingerprints done. If you're working with the FBI or some sort of investigative type thing, you might have to get fingerprinting done. But if you're just working a Joe Schmo job, you probably don't have to get fingerprinting done. You can't just blindly listen to people, even if it's for a job, because we live in a world where jobs are a little scammy occasionally too.
Anyways, so when I turned 18, it was time to skiddly daddle, get my own phone plan, move out, all that stuff. So when I did that, I went to the AT&T store to get my phone on my own plan, and they could not verify my identity. It's bizarre, but I didn't feel like sitting there for hours and hours and hours while we tried to figure out what was going on. So we just got my phone put on my roommate's plan, and that was it. Fast forward, I met my husband. It was time for us to get an apartment and get our own phone plan and credit cards and all that. Well, none of those places could verify my identity either. So it was time to start looking into this. So I ran my credit, pulled up the credit report, and my credit score was a 412.
Oh, wow. That's horrible.
412. And it shouldn't have been anything because I didn't have anything in my name at that time. So I looked on my credit report and saw that there was a loan for over $1,000 taken out of my name over 6 months this had been over 6 months ago.
So let's say this is you. You've never had anything that you've done that would even affect your credit. You should have no credit. And all of a sudden you find out you've got $1,000 bill somewhere. I don't know about you, but my heartbeat would start going out of my chest because you just don't like to know that there's stuff over your head, especially if it's not your fault.
So I called the bank that the loan was taken out of, and I was like, what is this about? I did not take this loan out. What was this used for? Yada, yada. This loan was used to purchase an Xbox and accessories and all that. My mother has 3 boys, and she's the only person other than myself that would know my social security number and my information like that. I texted her and I was like, oh my gosh, somebody took out a loan in my name. You know, like I didn't say it was her. She blocked me. So that right there told me everything I needed to know.
Her mom blocks her and she uses her credit to buy her brother's basically an Xbox. I assume it's her brother, but she's said that her mom has 3 boys. Maybe it's through another father.
So I reached out to her on Facebook or something and was like, I'm going to give you until the end of the year to start making payments on this because I really don't want to have to, you know, press charges. So I gave her, this was August at the time that I reached out to her, and I gave her until December, and she did not. She blocked me. So I reached out to her husband again, was like, hey, I'm going to give you until the end of the year to figure this out. Still no payments were made, and I was blocked by him. So I had to press charges. I went to the police station, filed a police report. She was arrested in Ohio, which is where she lives. She was in that jail for 30 days and then expedited here, Alabama.
For $1,000? Do they do that? By the way, if your mom or dad took your identity and you absolutely had nothing else you could possibly do because they were blocking you, right, from communicating with them, do you think you would go ahead and press charges? If so, share down below.
And then she made bail. She pled not guilty, requested to go to trial. This was 2 years ago. It's been 2 years since this happened, or a little over 2 years. Anyways, so a couple months ago, I get a call from the district attorney saying that my mother has applied for the deferred program, which is basically like probation, and if you finish it, then it gets off of your record. I said, no ma'am. No ma'am. So she was denied, and jury selection is May 13th, and then the trial begins that week as well. So she called me when she got arrested. She called me from jail. How could you do this to me? I'm your mother. I can't believe you would do this. Please drop the charges, yada, yada, yada. When I said, I can't drop the charges, it is now the state versus you, she's like, I hate you, and hung up the phone. I'm sorry, but I think you got things backwards, Jessica, because how could you do this to me? I am your daughter.
You know it's bad when the kids are calling you by your first name. I don't know why this happens, but when it comes to identity theft, I hear a lot more situations where parents or family members steal your identity than I do about third parties or hackers or what have you.
What would I recommend for an identity theft fraud on credit? If you're set on handling it yourself, I've been telling my clients not to get police reports recently because I think police bungle the reporting process. Instead, you should go to the Federal Trade Commission's website and go through their fraud ID theft affidavit form builder and do that, and then print it off and attach it to a dispute and send it to the bureaus. Because they're required under law to block whatever the account information is within 5 days. It's a very, very powerful tool. And it is a lot better than getting a police report because, like, cops make terrible transcriptionists. Like, you can tell them what happened, but you're relying on them to write it down correctly. And sometimes they actually make the situation worse rather than better through their report. So it's just not a great process to utilize, especially when you have the Federal Trade Commission's fraud ID theft affidavit that you can use.
But it sounds like what he said is if you take his advice, go his route for taking care of it, in 5 days everything gets frozen. That sounds like a situation where you can at least stop the bleeding right away, because it sounds like a lot of times people try to stop it in certain ways and it ends up getting worse.
So it's official. We all had our identity stolen. To be honest, I hope whoever decides to be me enjoys being me, because I'm sick of myself. Like, seriously, maybe somebody else has a better idea on how to be me, because I feel like I've exhausted everything. Maybe somebody else can come with a new perspective. To be honest, whoever decides to be me, if they decide to be a better me than I am, I'm going to report it and just do what they did.
So one of the benefits of having horrible credit, in my opinion, is that it probably makes it where people can't open too many things in your name and in your social security number. So if you do have horrible credit, there might be a little natural protection there. But again, I could be wrong. On our walk that we're going to take here in a couple minutes, the state of Rhode Island and Governor McKee had said on this past Friday that basically everybody that was in their public assistance plan had their identity potentially compromised because they had a data breach and a cyber attack. And this is going to talk about it right here. So I hope you enjoy.
So continuing to track this story of the Rhode Island significant cyber attack. So a little more information. Looks like the entire online benefits system has taken a direct hit by this cyber attack, and possibility of hundreds of thousands of residents' information most likely has been compromised during this cyber attack. So they don't know the extent or how much data, but they are concerned that a lot of the personal data, names, addresses, social security numbers, other financial information may have been compromised in the state of Rhode Island. And I know the cybersecurity firm Deloitte is the one that's kind of responsible for overseeing their cybersecurity. As you know, Deloitte was also in the news for a data breach of about 1.2 terabytes of information for one of their systems, though they said it's only isolated to one system on there, but we're tracking that story in addition to this Rhode Island.
So isn't that scary? You go to Deloitte and you say, hey, make us ironclad, right? Make us foolproof when it comes to this cyber thing. And even Deloitte gets hacked occasionally. So this is a situation where if you think, hey, I haven't lived in Rhode Island in 3 or 4 years, you might not be out of the water just yet, because this could potentially go back as far as 8 years.
Island one. So again, we'll continue to follow this story. Right now, I've looked at all the threat intel feeds. Nobody's claimed responsibility on this one, so I am looking for the threat actor that's going to be claiming responsibility. And once I get that information, I'll definitely keep everybody updated.
So here's the thing that's so crappy. Governor Dan McKee of Rhode Island, right, told everybody about this Friday at 5 p.m. So even if you want to call up to the government different offices, they're probably closed for the weekend, right? To make matters worse, he was initially tipped off to this data breach December 5th. Between December 5th and the 12th or what have you, whatever day Friday was, they there probably could have been another dozen to a couple hundred people that applied for assistance, probably hundreds of people.
So it looks like the state of Rhode Island just got hit with a massive cyber attack. The state of Rhode Island Friday took down its online portal used by residents to obtain social services such as SNAP and Medicaid benefits, as well as health insurance through the health source R1 after being hit by a massive cyber attack. So looks like they took down those online services. We don't know the extent or the specific type of an attack. Right now, there's nobody that's claiming responsibility for this cyber attack.
It's fascinating because this is going to start happening all around the country with regularity.
Rhode Island's RI Bridges public benefits system was shut down after a major cyber attack, potentially exposing personal data of hundreds of thousands of residents. The breach, first detected on December 5th, prompted officials to disable the system and the Healthy Rhode Island RI Gov website after discovering malware embedded in its code. Hackers claim to have stolen 1 terabyte of sensitive data, including names, social security numbers, and bank details, and threatened to release it. The attack affects users of Medicaid, SNAP, child care assistance, and other key programs. While no identity theft has been reported, officials urge anyone who applied for benefits since 2016 to monitor bank accounts and change passwords.
So if you monitor bank accounts, change passwords, and potentially even change your bank account, it's probably going to interrupt your benefits that you receive from the state on top of it. So what they did to get ahead of this, they sent out everybody's assistance for December in advance. So you're good. But in the new year, I don't know how they're going to get this fixed. It could take a long time, but God willing, they'll get it fixed. With that being said, let's talk a little bit more about this. Go get your shoes. Let's go for a walk. Adventures, I hope you guys are having a good day. You know, the other day I get a letter from this place called Change, and they tell me that, hey, you know that surgery you had, there was a slight data breach, right? And a lot of people might be affected, or not infected, affected. Just wanted to let you know. But they might as well have told us we were infected with something, because right after you hear that, it kind of makes your heart flutter a little bit, and you start to think, oh, what a wonderful world it would be if I woke up tomorrow and my identity was stolen from me and my accounts were drained, right? But after a couple of days, I kind of came down to earth about it. Actually, after a couple of hours, I have identity theft protection, so I gave myself permission not to stress out too much about it. Hopefully that's something where if anybody tried doing something, my theft protection would notify me pretty quickly, right? And I could hopefully limit the damage. And you know, they always say, hey, we've got your back for up to $1 million, but I have a feeling I would always be under one of those categories that weren't quite covered. You know how corporations and businesses tend to do that to us, the people, right? Well, check this out. In Rhode Island, Governor McKee came on the news on Friday in front of reporters and said that as early as December 5th, he had been notified that RI Bridges, which is their portal that they have for people out there that are on public assistance, everything from food stamps to getting a check to getting health care, anything like that can be greatly affected by this cyber attack that they had. And apparently, to get ahead of this, they immediately sent out people's assistance for December so that would not be affected. But over the next couple of days, maybe even weeks, they're going to actually go offline. So if you're a brand new person seeking assistance in Rhode Island, you're going to have to go the old 1985 route of a paper application. They're hoping to have this fixed by next month, but when they were pressed in this press briefing, they kind of had that look in their eyes like, we hope to God we'll have this fixed next month, which you know as well as I do, when it comes to our government, 95% of the time, that means dream on. There's no way we're gonna have this fixed by next month. But again, the hope is that they will. So I took down a couple of notes, and I also wrote down a couple people's comments, because I think this is scary. We're starting to get to the point where every time there is a data breach, it's always from these big cities or these big corporations. I mean, I don't know if Rhode Island is a big city considering it's a state and all, but still, Rhode Island is the size of Phoenix, Arizona. There's quite a few people. They said that more than likely this affects hundreds of thousands of people. And check this out. The original video I watched said that this data breach went back at least to 2019, but on an updated video I saw, it made it sound on the video itself from the news briefing that it might go back as far as 8 years. So even if you haven't been a part of the Rhode Island system in the last 3 or 4 years, you might not be okay. You might still need to double check to make sure that your accounts and passwords are updated. So here's the crappy thing. This isn't going to affect the rich people at all. It's not even going to affect the middle class. This is actually going to affect the poorer people of the state of Rhode Island who actually use public assistance. I don't know if this is going to basically make it where come next month it's going to be fingers crossed on if they can get their assistance or not. Either way, let's say everything goes off without a hitch. I would imagine there's going to be tens of thousands of people next month that are sweating bullets. And when you do that to people this time of year around Christmas, God, that's no different than laying somebody off. You're making their stress go from down here, sky high and through the roof. You know, you figure everybody always tells us, make sure you have good cybersecurity on your computer. Make sure you have good passwords. Make sure you have this, that, and the other. And then you end up finding out that they themselves don't even have the best cybersecurity. Isn't that kind of criminal? If you've been looking for a job in that area, it looks like they're going to be opening a call center to help assist people whose ID has been compromised. God, you know, it's one thing to have your identity compromised by family members or close friends that maybe got a hold of your laptop or your personal information, right, by snooping around. It's another thing when you give it to a government entity or a business and they end up getting their data breached. And you're just a part of that. If you've ever had any situation where a family member, a friend, or a complete stranger tried stealing and tampering with your identity, please let us know down below. I have a funny feeling that if something ever bad happens, I have a feeling my identity theft protection is going to probably do nothing more than let me know it's happening. Because you know what I noticed? When I open up another bank account, because I did that situation over the last 6-7 months, my identity theft protection told me about that like 3 or 4 days later. I mean, I don't know about you, but if the identity theft protection that we all have is 3 or 4 days behind a live report, it sounds to me like the bad guys could get away with everything before your identity theft is even triggered. If I'm wrong on that, please let me know. But that's what it comes across as. You know, I get a call on Tuesdays and they're like, hey, last Thursday, did you open up an account? Yeah, I think so. And then sometimes they would double call on the same thing. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I did, but I feel like I already talked to you about this. Yeah, we just wanted to make sure. Okay. Customers will not be able to log into their accounts while they're offline. So again, when it comes to the government, are they ever speedy with anything? They got the checks out, they got the public assistance out early. So that's kind of nice. But what do people that are not necessarily well off, what do they do when they get a little extra money? They tend to burn through it even faster. So I just hope that they're able to fix this by next month. This is going to affect Medicaid, SNAP, TANF, CCAP, Rhode Island Works, and basically the general public assistance program altogether. They'll be going to paper applications, which you know as well as I do, even back in the 80s and 90s when they were used to doing triplicates and duplicates and carbon copies and paper, they weren't necessarily the fastest. For a modern day workforce to go back to, 19th century policies. We're in the 21st century now. But for them to go back to the 20th century policies of work, that's not going to work at all. You and I both know that. Sometimes we get birds like this where it looks like, oh my God, that guy he got attacked by a cat and came back to life. Look at that. Is that just scary or what? Can you tell us what happened to you? What if it's one of those, I don't know if you guys heard about this, they have dead pigeons that the taxidermists are converting into drones. That's one of those evil, deadly birds. That bird looked like it had the damn plague. I probably shouldn't have even gone near it. Okay, so here's the goal according to Governor McKee. According to Governor McKee, no interruption of benefits and the private info not used for bad. Those sound like good goals that probably aren't going to happen. Hey, I have a goal, Jesse. What's that, Bob? I'd like to lose 30 pounds in 90 days. Bob, that's probably not going to happen. They recommend you keep an eye on your credit and contact your bank so they are aware of the compromise. So what that means is if you work in a bank up in Rhode Island, more than likely you're going to be dealing with high call volumes this week. And instead of being a fun last week before you get ready for the Christmas holiday, it's going to be a really stressful time for you. You're going to have a lot of people freaking out like you did something wrong. And the reality is it's just bad people somewhere on the earth making people's lives miserable. HealthSource Rhode Island members are told to make payments through CVS, or if you go in person, they have a drop box inside the door. And they mentioned Deloitte. I don't know if Deloitte's going to try to help them get over this, or if Deloitte was part of what happened. Again, what's cool about our walks, guys, is I don't consider myself your news. I consider myself your walking partner, and we talk about this. So if I'm wrong on any of this stuff, please let us know down in the comments. And again, if you're a first-time listener, we have a walking channel. We love to walk to lose weight. It's also a great place where we can communicate about things that are kind of trending online and around the country. In this case, let's hope that this trend stops and doesn't catch on elsewhere. But I just have a funny feeling that the next year or two is just going to be story after story after story of our identities being compromised. I just have a funny feeling it's going to lead to more taxes and more money coming out of our pockets in one way, shape, or form. They're demanding money, but they will not disclose what the demands were. To me, that sounds like it was probably a lot of money. What do you guys think? I'm thinking they probably asked for a cool 10 to 50 million bucks. I could be wrong. They might have asked for 100,000 bucks, but I doubt it. And they could have asked for $1 billion bucks. But again, I think that's a little lofty. If you guys have heard any rumors or any thoughts on what they would charge, I'm just imagining they would charge something astronomical. Otherwise, it probably would have been paid. But here's the thing. If our government or businesses pay these folks off, that's kind of scary too, because then that makes it sound like we're powerless to do anything against it. But I don't know if you guys remember this from a year or two ago. Didn't some casinos out in Las Vegas actually decide to go ahead and pay the ransom? I think they did. So that just goes to show you, crime does kind of pay. The thing that's really sickening that the newspaper reporter mentioned, and I loved the newspaper reporter, I didn't catch his name, but he goes, didn't you guys know about this December 5th? Why did you wait until Friday? Which, by the way, they ended up going and doing this press briefing on Friday at 5 p.m. So even if you were totally upset and you started calling up to the city or the state, guess what? It was going to be Saturday and nobody was going to be there to answer your call other than an answering machine. And that's what's so frustrating. How many people went into that portal and gave their private information away between December 5th and this past Friday? I'm guessing probably at least a few, right? Could you imagine you could have been saved that irritation and stress and potential future problems if Governor McKee and company would have just done the right thing and told people a little bit quicker? I know you don't want to jump to conclusions on December 5th, but I think you probably should have told people 2 or 3 days later. I don't think it's good to wait until Friday, end of day. That just makes it sound like they don't want to deal with the repercussions. People are immediately urged to change their passwords and accounts. God, I don't know about you guys, but one of the things I noticed is over the last couple years, they've come up with services just to keep track of our damn passwords. I'm sick of having to come up with new passwords. All it creates is a situation where you and I can never remember our passwords. I've gotten to the point where about half the time I log in anywhere, I just click on forgot my password. It's bizarre. We live in this really crazy world. What's the point of having a password if they're all hackable? You know, it just seems to me like there's got to be a better way. We spend so much money collectively in taxes. Don't you guys agree we deserve to have top of the line? It seems like they always make it sound like, oh my God, here in America, we've got the best country. You know why it's the best country? Because people like you and me that work hard and pay taxes, and it just gets gobbled up by this greed and this incompetence. Can I get an amen? You know, when you're poor, Christmas isn't necessarily the easiest holiday
for us anyway. A lot of us overextend and we tell ourselves, hey, we're going to sacrifice this month, not buy the normal stuff we do, so we can buy the kids and the family members gifts and presents, right? I used to go through that. Did you? A lot of families do. So this situation is just really unacceptable. I don't blame anybody but the bad guy, but it's just one of those things where it's like, why do we all have passwords? Why do we all take the time to try to do things right if a good hacker is just going to be able to get in regardless? No matter how safe you and I are with protecting our identity, it sounds like when it comes to businesses, third-party businesses, and the government, it sounds like they don't really care. And when they can pay the ransom and make it right, they're not going to, which might be good because the ransom would just be taken from us anyway, right? So no matter how you slice or dice it, it's gonna cost us yet again. And by the way, this problem, even though it's in Rhode Island, stresses me out like you wouldn't believe. And I'll tell you why. Rhode Island today is Dallas, Texas tomorrow, Phoenix, Arizona the next day, Seattle, Washington the next, and it's going to keep on happening. If they can breach the state of Rhode Island, I'm sure they can breach your and my state as well. Rhode Island, God bless them, are not that many people compared to some other states out there. But this will be a litmus test for how easy they are to get past this, or how challenging it's going to be. And the real crappy thing is all the victims that lose their identity to identity fraudsters in the future, we will probably never hear about their woes and their griefs and their stories that come from this. Every time I've ever heard a story of somebody whose parents stole their identity or this, that, and the other, it's always a bad story about how they couldn't get a house or they couldn't get a car loan. So again, if that happens to you, me, or any of us in the future, just know I don't want that to happen to you. People are immediately urged to change their passwords and their accounts. Well, you want to know what happens when you change your accounts? When they try to put your funds onto your card the following month or into your account, for all I know, that's going to cause more problems. It might not work like that. They might send you well, they said they don't deal with checks. So if they deposit anything into your account and you go and change your account and their system is down, well, that sounds like you're going to get screwed out of a month's worth of benefits if you don't play your cards right. And here's the problem. I don't know the best advice on how you should play your cards right. They need to monitor their accounts. A lot of people that are on the low end of the socioeconomic ladder, they don't necessarily have the best accounting skills. A lot of them try to do kind of what I recommend, which is try to spend less than you bring in. But if you got to watch your account every day like a hawk, again, that's just going to add a lot of unneeded stress to this time of the year. This runs from 2019 to today, so even if you've been out of Rhode Island for years, this could still affect you. And on the latest update, I heard it could affect you for going back to 8 years, so hopefully not. Kim Bergstrom says, computers are the devil. Kim, here's the crazy thing. I remember one of my jobs that I had when I was a teenager was dealing with triplicates and duplicates. They were carbon copies. They were basically the paper trail of different transactions that have happened. To my knowledge, we don't keep any type of paper trail anymore. If we're going to have a future where bad actors out there can just wipe away computer histories, right, and the system's history with you, God, we're going to probably have to go back to paper and carbon copies in the future. But again, if the computer's the devil, like you say, maybe this will be a way we can fight the devil. Danny 12J9R says, I will never understand why a system for Rhode Islanders is accessible to people outside of America. Yeah, I don't really understand that either. That's what I was saying earlier. It seems like if you're outside of the country, there should be some sort of safeguard where the computer system should pick up that, hey, this person's from outside the country. But you know what? Thieves are so darn smart, Danny, that more than likely they would find a way to do it from within America itself. You would just, instead of having a hacker, you would have a team of just incredible intelligence officers where their main cell of action was still here in America. Could we catch them before they diverted that money outside of the country? Again, I don't know, it sounds like a pain in the ass, but I agree with you. Galaxy Squid. Guys, I think we can all agree Galaxy Squid is a great name. Galaxy Squid 758 says, WWIII has started, and no one knows until they watch the news about it. Just wait. I kind of said something like this about 3 or 4 weeks ago, that I know people have been saying that we've been in war since 2014 because of this Russia and Ukraine type situation, right? That it's been going on for a long time. And I have a feeling that this comment might be very true. We might literally be in the thick of things and we just haven't officially declared it yet, you know? So here's the thing, if they officially declare it tomorrow, not saying they will, but let's say they did, it means that we're already in it. Kind of a scary situation, isn't it? Lisa Rucker, X8K says, this is serious, people. Lisa, I think this is more serious than most of the ones that we talk about. I've heard of kids getting their data breached because of school systems, right? And I've heard of other situations where people had their data breached, including that Las Vegas, I forget what Las Vegas resort it was, but you guys remember that they had to pay the ransom to the bad guys, so to speak. But this is one of those where it could literally start to affect people. And if you have a lot of people that are without, you're gonna see some real problems come from this. Scary type problems where all of a sudden people could be homeless because of this stuff. And I just don't like the idea of little kids being without food. Now, because it's a smaller state, and because we have 49 other states that have Rhode Island's back, we can probably get through this. The scary thing is the chain reaction that can occur from this. What are we gonna do when all of a sudden it's not just Rhode Island, but a half dozen other states too? Paige Foster, 8396 says, perhaps everything being digital is bad. Paige, I love digital stuff. I can remember when we went from Atari to Nintendo, and I just thought, oh my God, the future's gonna be so cool. I don't even play video games anymore. I can't stand passwords. I think the phone is not making the world better. I think the cell phone and all the things that we're bringing into our brain, I think it's making the world worse. Perhaps everything being digital is bad. Larry Adams says, this is exactly why nobody should be buying anything online or on the phone. You take all that info away and there's nothing for them to attack but you guys. When they say but you guys, I think he's talking about the government. If they attack the government but they don't have our information online for them, then there's no harm, no foul. But at the same time, I don't know what he means. A lot of times we get really upset about this and we just want to scream to the world. And that's what this show is all about, venting. If you have a vent that you'd like to share or you'd like me to take a look at, put it in the comments and I'll try my best to do it for a next upcoming show. Other than that, thank you for walking with me. I'll see you tomorrow, Venters.